Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the IEEE Forms of the Future podcast. My name's David Stankiewicz, and I am super lucky and happy to have two very special guests today from Melbourne, Australia. We're going to talk a little bit about Melbourne as a beautiful destination for IEEE events and everything it has to offer. I am joined by Julia Swanson and VJ Paul. I want to get right into it, folks. Julia, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did your journey begin? How did you get to your current role? And what do you do for the Melbourne MCB?
Thank you, David, and great to talk to you today. Yes, I'm Julia Swanson. I'm CEO of the Melbourne Convention Bureau. I've been with the Bureau for 14 years and have a long history in the tourism and events industry in Melbourne, Victoria, prior to that. Melbourne Convention Bureau is an organisation mostly government funded that exists to bring international business events to Melbourne and make it an amazing experience for all. So we're mostly government funded. We're a free service. We also don't take commissions, but we're here really as your trusted destination partner to make events a success. So we work with global bodies such as IEEE and then organisations locally, or might be local chapters or bid leaders, to bring international events to Melbourne, and then really we're the destination steward to help make connections, make the event a success and give destinations an incredible experience. And as part of that, it's great to engage us early so we can help with venue selection, we can help with accommodation, appointment of local conference organisers, and we can really help bring that local IP to the table about what's unique about doing business events in Melbourne, and help with those things that event organisers often say is hard to navigate when you're doing events in a different country.
That's great. And Julia, I'll mention to the audience, this podcast is set up as part of a partnership that you have with IEEE, and you'll be at our Convene conference in Hawaii in a few weeks. So please stop by and see them at their booth.
Stop by and meet the Melbourne team. Yes, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. And VJ Paul, an IEEE member and a local volunteer there in Melbourne, Australia. Tell us about yourself, VJ.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me here. So I've been an active IEEE volunteer for 16 years now, starting off as a student volunteer when I was 18 years old. So through the years, I've volunteered with IEEE across various roles with affinity groups, technical society chapters, multiple sections, Region 10, Asia Pacific, as well as MGA. And as part of that volunteering journey, I currently hold the responsibility of chair of IEEE Victorian section here in Melbourne. And as for my day job, I work as a communications advisor at Monash University.
Awesome. Well, it's amazing to have the two of you here. Thanks for doing this. Let's get right into it. I've never been to Melbourne. I want to go.
Well, we have to change that, David.
Can we switch that and change that up soon? Get me there. I got to get there. I want to know exactly why it's such a beautiful destination for conferences, especially IEEE events, which many have been hosted there. And then, if you don't mind, on a more personal note, what do you love about Melbourne, Australia? Julia, you go first.
Sure. Look, Melbourne, first of all, is a big city. We've got a population of 5 million. It's a city that offers compact diversity. It's very flat. It's a grid-like system, almost a bit like New York. So it's very easy to navigate as a delegate. We have free public transport. We have extensive tram system in the city centre. And that's all free. So it's an incredibly easy city to visit. It's very multicultural. We have 140 cultures living in Melbourne, and 55% of Melburnians were born overseas. So what that means is it's a really diverse, it's really vibrant, and you get great options in terms of dining. You can get any cuisine in the world in Melbourne. And it's a great event city. It's really a city that there's always something on. It's not a 2C city, it's an experiential city. So it might be the Australian Open in January, one of our signature events. It might be the Formula One Grand Prix that's in March. In fact, we're the only city in the world to have both a tennis Grand Slam and a Formula One Grand Prix. But there's events throughout the year, and there's something for everyone. So it might be fashion, it might be comedy, it might be food and wine, it might be sport. Might be Taylor Swift, who's not so long ago had 3 very successful concerts of around 100,000 a night. There's always something on in terms of the city, so you can choose your own adventure. In terms of the conference offering in the city, that's also very important. We have a convention centre that's really large, so it's 197,000 square metres. It's right in the downtown area, which is very unique, and it's fantastic because you feel like you're part of the city. So it's walkable, all the hotels that you need, from 5-star luxury to budget. We've got 26,000 hotel rooms in Melbourne. So you don't need to arrange bus transfers. You don't need transit time. You can walk there or get a free tram. So it's a really easy experience from an organiser perspective. It's very modern. It's very sustainable. And it really makes life easy as an organiser. And there's a lot of other venue options across Melbourne as well. So if it's a small event or a large event, it can be accommodated at the convention centre. But there's options all across the city. What I like, I love food and wine, so that is fantastic for me. I think you can choose from any cuisine you want. If you want Indian, if you want Ethiopian, if you want Mexican, if you want Australian Indigenous food, to try something different. There's an option everywhere. So it's really vibrant, and you can choose your own adventure when you come to Melbourne.
That's great. And that's sort of the hospitality perspective and the, the everything that the city and the country, frankly, brings to the table. Vijay, as a technologist, which you are, talk about it from your perspective, organizing an event there and why it's so great.
I would very much reflect on the same thing that Julia mentioned, right? As an IEEE volunteer, as a conference organizer, I absolutely love how Melbourne is built as a city. And I would actually take that exact word that Julia said. It's very compact, right? So within a compact area, you have a major conference venue like the Melbourne Convention Centre. You have numerous hotels. You have like at least 3 world-class universities just in the downtown area. You have multiple tourism destinations within walking distance and an impeccable public transport system that helps you traverse between all these places within, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes, right? Just across that area. And again, as a conference organizer or as a IEEE event organizer, it's a logistical dream, right? Getting all these places within such a compact area. And that's exactly why over the years, Melbourne has been able to host multiple conferences to such a high standard and to such a brilliant experience for the conference organizers as well as the attendees. Now, coming over to the personal aspect of why I love Melbourne, it's definitely a mix of all these reasons. Definitely the multiculturality of it, plus the fact that Melbourne does have the best coffee in the world. Not arguing on that.
So I've heard. Yeah, no, I've heard, and that another reason for me to get there. So no, that's great. I think if we just use those 2 snippets of why to go to Melbourne, we could stop the podcast here and everyone should just take off and travel there and experience it. But let's dive deeper. Let's talk about conferences specifically. I know, Julia, you mentioned earlier, 55% of the people that live there are not born there. What about the business attendees, the conference attendees? I know Melbourne is spoken about as a gateway to the Asia Pacific region. Where do most of the business conference attendees come from? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, sure, David. Look, it's a really broad spectrum, I think, and that's one of the great things about Melbourne. We do attract people from around the globe. We're lucky that our full aviation is back to pre-COVID levels and it continues to grow, which is fantastic. And we're seeing new routes and new airlines being added all the time. We've got a curfew-free 24-hour airport, so we've got high volume of flights coming in. And we work through all the major hubs. So the Middle East is a major hub, other Asian cities such as Singapore, and then, hubs in London, Frankfurt, Paris provide connectivity, and then through the US, most come through LA, which is LA direct to Melbourne, and you can also fly Dallas Fort Worth to Melbourne direct. So there's a lot of options, and particularly a lot of organisers choose to host their event in Melbourne because it is that gateway to Asia Pacific. So we have around 300 flights between Melbourne and Asia per week. and it's got that multicultural appeal. So certainly for Asian delegates, they love coming to Melbourne. There's strong family and community connections here. So that's also a big draw card.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think people have some trepidation about getting there, direct flights, long haul travel. And, obviously you can't move your location as to where you're positioned in the world, but knowing that it's opening up to more and more airlines and cities to get there in an easier fashion, I think quells a little bit of anxiety about people booking a meeting there because of where it is. You mentioned earlier also sustainability, and I know many international associations want to host events in line with recognized sustainability standards. So Julia, I'm going to turn to you again. Tell me more about, let's dive deeper into Melbourne's efforts in promoting sustainability and why that's such an important topic.
Absolutely, David. And look, Melbourne and Victoria was one of the first jurisdictions in the world to put some goals in law about to work towards a carbon zero future. And the state government and the city government are very much aligned on that. So once you get to Melbourne, you can have an incredibly sustainable experience. The Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre was the first centre in the world to achieve a 6-star Green Star rating, and it's one of only 6 in the world to achieve platinum certification. So the Convention Centre are really world leaders in this space and have been for day one, and they continue to innovate. And that's everything around diverting things from landfill. It's working towards renewable energy. It's working to repurpose unused conference food and deliver that to charities and support the local communities. There's really a huge raft of resources there. From the destination more broadly, we are number 1 in the global GDS index for sustainable business events of all the destinations in Australia, which shows that we really know what we're talking about, and we really provide a huge amount of tools and case studies, which we make public to everyone on our website to share best practice. And we continue to learn as new organisers have events and they try different things, and we bring those stories to life. So we can certainly bring expertise, case studies and tools. And also it's about creating positive impact. So that's where we can work with organisers to look at what positive impacts they might want to create out of their events. So that could be community, it could be social, it could be economic, to help set goals and then bring the right partners to the table on that. And also, how do you look at supporting local communities? We published a First Peoples Guide earlier this year about how to bring our First Nations people into business events. So we try and bring that sort of local touch about what you can do to support the local community or local First Nations. And, it's something that everyone's working towards. So we very much see ourselves as someone that can bring that local expertise and local suppliers and help achieve those organisational goals.
Yeah, that's very important to IEEE as well. And I think it used to be, are you sustainable? Are you a sustainable destination? And the answer was yes or no. But it can't be that anymore. It's how are you doing it? What are you doing to move the needle on that front? Because it's just going to be something out of the box that I think organizers look at and meeting planners look at when they select a host city. So that's great. One more for you, Julia, before I turn it over to VJ for some tech questions. Let's talk about bleisure travel. For those of you that don't know, bleisure travel is a business and leisure travel mixed together. Melbourne, you alluded to this earlier, is known for its rich cultural tapestry, coffee, food, wine. You guys use the word compact diversity. If I plan an event there, an IEEE conference, what are some of the local attractions and sites you could recommend to enhance my experience, whether I do it before or after my big meeting? How do I make a holiday or vacation out of an amazing trip to Melbourne, Australia?
Well, there's so much that can be done, David. So the only trouble you'll have is choosing which one.
Let's pick a few.
Okay. Well, I think Melbourne as the epicenter, it's always in the top 5 livable cities in the world. So the residents love it, and because it has that compact diversity, the downtown area is vibrant. It's not a corporate business district. We have a large number of people living in the city centre, and so therefore there's always something on. It's very walkable, it's safe, it's well lit, and it has that diversity. There's 3,500 restaurants. VJ mentioned earlier about the coffee. I think as a fun fact, we drink about 3 million coffees a day in Melbourne, so you can't get a bad coffee. But we're very much an event city. So whether that's conferencing or any other type of event, I mentioned earlier the Australian Open, the Grand Prix, Fashion Festival. We have a strong theatre precinct, so there's always multiple shows on. Often Melbourne is chosen as the theatre hub of Asia Pacific. So a lot of the shows that you might see in Broadway or London's West End will choose Melbourne as their Asia Pacific hub. There's galleries, museums, so you can really choose your own adventure. But I think a lot of people also want to get out of the city. And one of the attractive things about Melbourne and Victoria is there's a lot to do within 1 to 3 hours of the city. So you can go on a tour, you can hire a car, but in an hour you can be in the Yarra Valley Wine District. So out in the beautiful countryside with beautiful high-class restaurants, enjoying wonderful Australian wine. You can go down to our Mornington Peninsula and experience some of our beaches. We have a very strong bathing and wellness sector. So we have a hot springs district called Dalesford. So if you want to go and pamper and relax in the country, in the hot springs, you can do that. Also, we've got some really high-class spas like Alba down on the Mornington Peninsula. So you can have an ultimate wellness experience, go to a winery and go to a beach, which are all within about 15 minutes drive of each other. So incredible experiences. And a bit further afar, we have our famous surf coast, our Great Ocean Road, where we have the Bells Beach International Rip Curl surfing competition. And then if you come in our winter time, you can be at the ski fields in 3 hours. So there's a huge amount, and that they're available to do day trips, or you can overnight and extend the stay a little bit longer as well.
Awesome options for, add-on events or social events for folks bringing their meeting to Melbourne. I want to shift gears a little bit. VJ, I want to put you on the spot. Let's talk technology. Let's talk IEEE. You said you're the chair of the IEEE Victoria section. Can you provide an overview of the section? I don't think a lot of people know about its history, some of the initiatives that it's known for, achievements, and I guess more importantly, its role in organizing IEEE conferences and events, and how you guys find your way into that in that space.
Sure. So IEEE Victorian section started in 1983. So this is we recently completed 40 years. It's the second oldest section in Australia. At the moment, we have close to 2,000 members across a range of technical fields. In terms of focus areas, definitely it's across the field of science and technology, but in terms of specific initiatives, we have multiple student paper and project contests for engineering students across universities in Melbourne, helping motivate the next generation of engineers. There's a strong student to early career transition network through the young professionals community. We have distinguished lecture programs that enable us to bring in global technical experts in front of a Melbourne audience. And very importantly, we recently also launched the first SITE group in Australia, which is the Special Interest Group for Humanitarian Technology, which enables us to get further involved in various humanitarian technology initiatives. And that's exactly what IEEE does, advancing technology for humanity. So that's again very important for us. Now, Victorian section has definitely a growing influence within the Australian as well as the global IEEE community over the last few years. So, for example, this year, 9 of our volunteers serve on various regional and global IEEE communities, which is the largest presence till date. So it makes easier and a stronger voice for Melbourne, for Victorian section across the globe, across the IEEE entity globally. Our largest ever delegation will be attending this year's IEEE Region 10 Asia Pacific Biennial Congress in Tokyo. Earlier this year, or throughout this year rather, we have been granted 7 separate grants for various technology initiatives. 4 of these have been received for the first time ever, and we have been the only Australian section to receive them. And at the same time, along with all these initiatives, we have also been successful in building some great connections, great partnerships with the state government, Department of Industry, Science and Resources, IEEE standards, and various other science and technology organizations across Victoria.
So first of all, bravo. Congratulations on all that. That's amazing. And one of the things you pointed out is an important initiative of our current IEEE president, Tom Coughlin, engaging YPs, especially at conferences. And you guys are doing that with the young professionals. So that's awesome. When it comes to technology, IEEE has, I hope I get this number right, I think 47 societies. Which ones are strongest in the area or the region? Which ones find the most synergy with the city of Melbourne?
So out of those 47, at Victoria, we have 16 active technical society chapters, but we definitely have members from literally every other society as well. But formal structure, we have 16 of them. But if I had to select the one that IEEE has most synergy with, I would go with ComSoc, Communication Society, EMBS, Engineering and Medicine and Biology Society, because Melbourne has a very strong research and expertise in that field. Definitely Computer Society, Power and Energy, PES, as well as Industry Application Society, IES.
Okay. Last question. I'm going to go Julia first and then VJ second. And, we had a pre-call and we scripted a lot of this out, but I'm going to throw a curveball at you. The name of my podcast is Forums of the Future. Let's do just that. Let's look to the future. I want you to be a prognosticator for a minute. Julia, from an events industry perspective, and you're so tapped into that sort of vertical, where do you see events in the future? 5, 6, 7 years out. They're ever changing. The pandemic changed things, I think, considerably. Where do you see events in the future and their importance in human connection and networking? And I know I put you on the spot there, but
No, absolutely. Happy to answer that question. And I think in many ways, now that we're a couple of years out of it, we can actually say there was a silver lining out of COVID in that people don't take the power of human connection for granted anymore. And people have got a greater understanding that travel is a need, not a want, and it's about life enrichment, it's about education, it's about personal development, and that human connection is just so important. So, which is why we saw the sort of events and convention sector rebound so quickly, because people had it taken away and they realised what they lost. So I'm really positive about the growth of the convention sector and events, because I think people now appreciate it and understand it more than ever. And I think it's really about building those international collaborations and making meetings purposeful. And people are really looking to think more about their event design and what are the objectives out of it. I mean, everyone wants to have a great delegate experience and make that, fun and enjoyable. But it's also about what are those deeper connections and collaborations and industry growth that you can drive. So it's really that strategic element to the convention sector. And I think as destinations, we've evolved a lot. It's not just about the tourism offering anymore. It's about those greater connections, the greater international collaborations and the business component and the strategic objectives. That's really where the industry is going. And so we're, really excited to work with partners like IEEE to take that further.
VJ, I think she set you up nicely, but I want to ask you from an IEEE conference perspective, because she talked about connections, and I always talk about IEEE conferences in the sense of community, all of the individuals who are like-minded or working on a project that you might be working on. I mean, you can get together like this over a video call or a podcast or a Zoom and you can discuss it, but there's nothing like getting together in person. How important is the IEEE conference to a technologist or a scientist like yourself?
I would very much echo that one factor that Julia mentioned, the human connection. And as I would say, every single person would agree, after the whole COVID era, people understood and realized that much more. So even apart from bigger conferences, even right now when at IEEE Victorian section, even when we organize smaller events, might be a half an hour webinar with an IEEE expert, right? Half an hour seminar with an IEEE expert. The number of people who really take the effort to travel maybe 1 or 2 hours by public transport and come to the event, see others and build that connection. Right now, people are to be very honest, less concerned about the technical aspect, but it's more like I want to meet that person. I want to build my network. I haven't done this the last many years. But at the same time, I would also acknowledge the fact that because of that technological, the whole human connection difficulty we faced during COVID, the hybrid event format has also been accepted even a lot more. So the benefit which I see because of that is, say, even in Victoria, there are lots of technologists who live in rural Victoria. For them, it's not possible to travel to the city of Melbourne, right? They are able to join an event in a hybrid format virtually, whereas there's others in the actual room, right? It still enables them to get that community feeling. Just because of physically where they're placed does not isolate them. And end of the day, as you would also be very familiar, IEEE, it's all about that community feeling, like be it technical, be it just that networking part, be just working towards a common humanitarian technology goal. It's that community that gives you that sense of a bigger meaning.
I don't think I could have said it better myself. I think that's a great way to put a capstone on a nice conversation with you folks. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for participating in my podcast. I love conferences. I love events. I love IEEE. And I think that all came through today with the three of us. So thank you, Julia Swanson. Thank you, VJ Paul. As a reminder, again, Melbourne and the MCB will be at IEEE Convene in Hawaii in a few weeks. So please come see them. And consider Melbourne as your next destination for your IEEE meeting or event. It's a wonderful place, so I'm told. I'm going to get there yet, and Julia's going to roll out the red carpet for me. VJ will greet me there with IEEE arms. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to close this out. This is another episode of the IEEE Forms of the Future podcast. Until next time, folks, have a great day. If you would like to learn more about IEEE conferences, events, and experiences, or Forums of the Future, please visit our website at IEEEMCE.org and search Forums of the Future. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube.